Before we even start, I think I have to go kill a bug on the ceiling over there. So y'all give me a minute. Sandy says read, and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to do a long review and discussion of The 13th Child by Erin A. Craig. Take a good look at that gorgeous cover. Take a look at the details on that cover, the candles and how lovely all that is. Those candles are going to come into play in a minute here. Now, this is going to be a longer review because I'm dividing it into 3 sections. We'll have an intro, and then we're going to divide it into 3 sections. We're going to read Godfather Death together for a reason. Then we're going to have a non-spoiler review section of the video where we talk a little bit about the characters, some themes, and some stuff going on in the book, give you some of the things I loved about it, because I really did enjoy the book a lot. And then we're going to go to part 3. And part 3 of this video is going to be a really deep dive into the book, into some themes and some character developments and plot points and stuff. Guys, there's a lot going on in this book. There's a lot to talk about, but it's going to be difficult to talk about without giving some spoilers. So the third part of this video, I'm going to warn you before it starts, and then we're going to dive in and really get into the weeds, okay? I will warn you before that happens because I know there's a lot of folks out there who might not have read this book yet. This was Book of the Month in December 2024, so it's only been a minute that this thing has been released, or it's been out there for us to talk about, for us to read, for us to get familiar with. So I don't want to give away things and spoil things for people. Okay, so I will let you know before we go into that. Before we even start, I want to welcome you guys to please subscribe to the channel. Please welcome your friends to subscribe to the channel too, because this Sandy Says Read channel is a booktube channel for book lovers. If you like book reviews and booktube tags and all the bookish discussions, this is the channel for you. I also want to let you know I have a merchandise shop. You'll notice this channel is kind of small. It is not monetized. So the only way I can actually make money off of this is through my merch. I do have fun bookish stuff at the merch shop. Here we go. I have mugs at the shop. See if you can even see that thing. No, there we go. Some days you just want the dragon to win. It's been my slogan since 2006 when I first got my first book deal. It's also available on a button. There are other things there. I'm going to stop the commercial in just a second. Basically, there's all kinds of bookish and dragony stuff at my merch shop. I'll put a link to that in the drop-down box below. Is that enough housekeeping and commercialization of this? Yeah, we're going to dive into the specs for The 13th Child. This was published in 2024 from Delacorte Press of Penguin Random House. The author is, as you can see here, Erin A. Craig. The jacket and the 3 candle art that we see inside here. Let me see if I can get hold, please. Get to a page so you can see that art. You see the 3 candles there? Isn't that nice? Cute little, just a nice little detail that is used throughout the book is that 3 candle art and then a single candle in between scene breaks. There's a single candle as well. That 3 candle art, and the jacket is from David Seidman. I'll see it is 488 pages. Plus we have an epilogue that goes from pages 489 to 494. And I was so thankful for the epilogue, you guys, so thankful. Then there is a prologue as well. The prologue is pages 1 through 8. We will talk about the prologue a little bit. It's written in first-person point of view, and we are in Hazel's point of view. She's our main character. Now, she's only 8 years old when we first meet her. Chapter 1, she's 8 years old. She's turning 8 years old. But this is not really a young adult story. We watch her age, we watch her progress through her life and go on her character arc. So we don't really stay in like a child's perspective. We don't stay in a young adult story. It's written in past tense, score. You guys know, if you've been here for any length of time, I'm not really keen on first person, but I can get into it. I can work with it if it's also in past tense. So I was very pleased that it did go into past tense. It's a fantasy, twisted fairy tale. That means it fits squarely into our fractured fairy tale reading challenge for this year. And I am cheating, and I'm saying it also fits our clock reading challenge for this year. Yes, it is the 13th Child, and I'm saying that the 13 is a 1 and a 3. Therefore, it fits the 1 and the 3 in our clock reading challenge. Just indulge me, cheat with me, because I don't have a 1 and a 3 on my shelf right now, so this is fitting that bill. So we're going to call this our fractured fairy tale book for this week, this month perhaps. No, I think I've got another one coming for you. Okay, so for this week, let me read the inside cover flap for you guys. And this is reverse type, so bear with me. Let's see if we can get through it together. Hazel Trapaz has always known she wasn't like her siblings, a 13th child promised to one of the gods. She spends her childhood waiting for her benefactor, Merrick, the god of death, to arrive and take her away. When he does, he lays out exactly what he's planned for Hazel's future. She will become a great and celebrated healer. To aid her endeavors, Merrick blesses Hazel with a gift, the ability to instantly deduce the exact cure needed to treat the sick. But all gifts come with a price. Hazel can see when death has claimed a patient and is tasked with ending their suffering permanently. Haunted by the ghosts of those she's killed, Hazel longs to run, but destiny brings her to the royal court, where she meets Leopold, a rakish prince with a disdain for everyone and everything. And that's where Hazel faces her biggest dilemma yet. Should she save the life of a king marked to die? Hazel knows what she is meant to do and what her heart is urging her toward. But what will happen if she goes against the will of Death himself? Let's go into the first part of our review and discussion. I want to read for you some of, if not all of, Godfather Death from the Brothers Grimm. The book I'll be reading from is Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. I hope you can see that there. I've blocked the screen. Let me tell you what book this is. And I don't want to trounce all over the copyright, but this is only like a couple pages. Did I write down how many pages this is? I'm only reading a few pages out of here, pages 154 to 156. So like 2 1/3 pages out of 652. I don't think I'm trouncing all over the copyright, but I want to be careful. All right. This particular book is from Canterbury Classics, and it was published in 2011 from Printers Row Publishing Group. Okay. Let's go to, all right, page 154, Godfather Death. A poor man had 12 children and was forced to work night and day to provide them even with bread. When, therefore, the 13th came into the world, he knew not what to do in his trouble, but ran out into the great highway and resolved to ask the first person whom he met to be godfather. The first to meet him was the good God, who already knew what troubled him, and said to him, "Poor man, I pity you. I will hold your child at its christening, and will take charge of it and make it happy on earth." The man said, "Who are you?" "I am God." "Then I do not desire to have you for a godfather," said the man. "You give to the rich and leave the poor to hunger." Thus spoke the man, for he did not know how wisely God apportions riches and poverty. He turned therefore away from the Lord and went farther. Then the devil came to him and said, "What do you seek? If you will take me as a godfather for your child, I will give him gold in plenty and all the joys of the world as well." The man asked, "Who are you?" "I am the devil." "Then I do not desire to have you for a godfather," said the man. "You deceive men and lead them astray." He went onwards, and then came Death, striding up to him with withered legs, and said, "Take me as godfather." The man asked, "Who are you?" "I am Death, and I make all equal." Then said the man, "You are the right one. You take the rich as well as the poor, without discrimination. You shall be godfather." Death answered, "I will make your child rich and famous, for he who has me for a friend can lack nothing." Okay, so the man invites Death to come to the christening. Death comes to the christening, and then the boy grows up without his godfather. When the boy had grown up, his godfather one day appeared and bade him go with him. He led him forth into a forest and showed him an herb which grew there, and said, "Now you shall receive your godfather's present. I make you a celebrated physician. When you are called to a patient, I will always appear to you. If I stand by the head of the sick man, you may say with confidence that you will make him well again. And if you give him this herb, he will recover. But if I stand by the patient's feet, he is mine, and you must say that all remedies are in vain, and that no physician in the world could save him. But beware of using the herb against my will, or it might fare badly for you." Okay, so the boy becomes a great physician pretty quickly, and people all around the world come to him for advice and for healing. Let's see. Now it so happened that the king became ill, and the physician was summoned, and was to say if recovery were possible. But when he came to the bed, Death was standing by the feet of the sick man, and the herb did not grow which could save him. "If I could but cheat Death for once," thought the physician. "He is sure to be angry if I do, but as I am his godson, he may shut one eye. I will risk it." He therefore took up the sick man and laid him the other way, so that now Death was standing by his head. Then he gave the king some of the herb, and he recovered and grew healthy again. But Death came to the physician, looking very black and angry, threatened him with his finger, and said, "You have overreached me. This time I will pardon it, as you are my godson. But if you venture it again, it will cost you your neck, for I will take you away with me." Soon afterwards, the king's daughter fell into a severe illness. She was his only child, and he wept day and night, so that he began to lose the sight of his eyes. And he made it known that whoever rescued her from death should be her husband and inherit the crown. When the physician came to the sick girl's bed, he saw Death by her feet. He ought to have remembered the warning given by his godfather, but he was so infatuated by the great beauty of the king's daughter and the happiness of becoming her husband that he flung all thought to the winds. He did not see that Death was casting angry glances on him, that he was raising his hand in the air and threatening him with his withered fist. He raised up the sick girl and placed her head where her feet had lain. Then he gave her some of the herb, and instantly her cheeks flushed red, and life stirred afresh in her. When Death saw that for a second time he was defrauded of his own property, he walked up to the physician with long strides and said, "All is over for you, and now the lot falls on you." And so there is a confrontation. And he takes the physician to, he takes him to a cave below the earth. There he saw how thousands and thousands of candles were burning in countless rows, some large, others half-sized, others small. Every instant some were extinguished, and others again burnt up, so that the flames seemed to leap here and there in perpetual change. "See," said Death, "these are the lights of men's lives. The large ones belong to children, the half-sized ones to married people in their prime. The little ones belong to old people. The children and young folks likewise have often only a tiny candle." "Show me the light of my life," said the physician, and he thought that it would be very tall. Death pointed to a little end which was just threatening to go out, and said, "Look, it is there." Now let's dive into the second part of this review and discussion, a non-spoiler review of The 13th Child. Now, I did not read every little bit of Godfather Death for you, and I did leave out the very end. When we go into the third part of this discussion and I'm giving away spoilers and such, I will read the last part of Godfather Death in part of our discussions there, as we're looking at some of the similarities and diversions from the Godfather Death fairy tale. We'll look at that last little piece, but I didn't want to read it and give too much away. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away because I would like to encourage folks to read this book, to read the story, and enjoy it the way I enjoyed it. It did not take me long at all to read through this book. How many pages did we say it was? Oh, where we got 488 pages. So plus the epilogue and stuff. So there's almost 500 pages, but it did not take long at all to read this. A couple of evenings, and I was done with it because it was paced very well, and the story was intriguing enough to keep me in the story, to keep me going. The story of Hazel, growing up as a kid, and the trials that she had to go through as a kid were, it was pretty quick to get through that part. And then, her time. Yeah. Okay, let's dive in. I'm about to give you the Sandy synopsis here. All right, the Sandy synopsis without spoilers. I wrote, Mama and Papa Trepas make a deal with the dreaded end to take their 13th child. But when Hazel's born, death comes, gives her an expensive quilt, and leaves without her. So Hazel grows up neglected and unloved, resented by her parents, and sometimes resented by her siblings too. When Death does fulfill his promise to take her, he reveals that she is to be a healer. The majority of the story is Hazel's journey of learning to be a healer and how to use that power and the rules around it, and coming away from manipulation. You guys, I saw so much manipulation of Hazel in this story. We'll have to look at some of that manipulation in the third part of this review because some of it is just so dependent upon spoilers, but she was manipulated by just about everyone in this book. Even Death, even the dreaded end, who loves her and cares about her and sees her as, a child to him. Even he was manipulating her in this book. And I don't think he was doing that to be mean. I don't think that Death was manipulating Hazel out of meanness. He certainly wasn't doing it out of spite. He wasn't doing it to be cruel to her. I think he was manipulating her because he didn't know what else to do to protect and save and keep her. Okay. Yeah. Let's look at our characters. First of all, of course, we have Hazel. She is our main character. She's the one this story focuses on. When we first meet her, she is just about to turn 8 years old. We first meet her when we are at her brother's birthday party. And I use the term party quite loosely. This family of 13 kids has no money. I mean, they've got nothing. They are poor. And the idea of a party is their mom was able to scrape together enough ingredients to make a cake. So Bertie, the brother, he's having his ninth. He's having his 9th birthday, and they're eating cake. And Hazel is going to turn 8 the next day. So that's how we mark the ages of these two. The next character we have is Merrick. He is Death. He is the dreaded end. He is the god who is the third one who came to the parents, Mama and Papa. He's the one who came to them and said, I'll take your kid. And they said, okay, you can. So let's look at page 153 for some words about Merrick. Let me get there for you. Oh, here we go. You guys, I underlined. He was the literal last word. That's what I underlined about him. Okay. All right. There's more to talk about Merrick, obviously, which we will do as we go through this. The next character on our list is the mother. Let's go to page 10 and look at her. She's the one who, when she told the father, hey, I'm pregnant with our 13th kid, and he's like, you've got to be kidding me. How am I going to afford another mouth to feed? She was like, well, maybe we could just put this baby in a basket down by the river. Maybe we could just put this baby in a basket down by the river, and some nice spirit will come along and take it. And yeah, the father was like, whoa, really? What did I marry? After 13 years, you think he'd know what he married. Anyway, let's go to page 10. And this is at the birthday event where Bertie is having his 9th birthday. And we're seeing a little bit about this woman who is the mother. And remember, this is in Hazel's point of view. We're in first person point of view, from Hazel's point of view. And she says, sometimes it felt as though I was fated to spend my entire life waiting. Everyone began to eat their fill as soon as the plates appeared before them, noisily exclaiming how good it tasted, how rich and moist the cake was, how sweet the frosting. As Matilda, the third youngest, got her piece, I glanced over with interest at the remaining wedgelet, and a stupid spark of hope kindled inside me. My mouth watered as I dared to imagine how nutty my bites would taste. It didn't matter that my serving would not be even half what Bertie was offered. It didn't matter that there was barely a covering of icing on its surface. I would still receive a sample. But Mama picked up the last piece and popped it between her lips without even bothering to serve it up on a plate first. Bertie, who had been watching the rest of the portioning with greedy eyes, hoping he might somehow snag a second helping, had the decency to remark upon it. "Mama, you forgot Hazel." Mama glanced down the long table, and she did look surprised, as though she might have well and truly forgotten me, wedged away in the farthest corner, rubbing elbows with Matilda and the cracked plaster wall. "Oh, Hazel," she exclaimed, and then raised her shoulders, not exactly with a look of apology, but more with an expression of, "Well, what am I to do about it now?" My lips tightened. It wasn't a smile of forgiveness, only a grim acknowledgement of understanding. She hadn't forgotten me, and we both knew it, just like I also knew that there was nothing I could say or do that would cause her a moment of remorse, a pang of repentance. "May I be excused?" I asked, my feet already swinging as I readied to jump down from a bench cut too tall for my tiny frame. "Have you finished your chores?" Papa asked, startling, as if he had just noticed my presence. I didn't doubt he had forgotten about me. I took up a scant amount of room in both his house and his thoughts, little more than a footnote in the great, bloated volume of his life's memoir. Okay, so we're starting to see a little bit about the father figure too, and he is our next character on the list. But let's go back to the mother for a minute, pages 51 and 52. We're looking at her down here. Oh, this is when Godfather Death, the dreaded end, he has finally come to take Hazel away. It's her 12th birthday, and the mother has come out to the barn. Hazel sleeps in the barn, and the mother has come out to the barn. She's like, "Oh, I should have made you a cake, huh?" And Godfather Death arrives, and he's like, I'm here to take you away. And the mother's like, "Oh, wow, really? Do I get some like recompense for all I've spent raising this child?" Yeah. So he throws some coins at her feet, and the mother is like, "That's it? Isn't she worth more than that?" And yeah, it's the woman is not great. And so he's telling her, "Let's see, I'm not spiriting you away forever. That was never part of the plan." "The plan," I echoed. "No one has ever told me the plan." "That changes today," he promised, and offered his elbow, as if he were a gallant gentleman at court, and I a lady in a fine gown. "Shall we then?" I nodded, feeling suddenly happier. I was leaving, but I would return. "I'll see you soon, Mama," I said, tucking my arm through my godfather's. The shadowy cloak was the softest thing I'd ever felt, a cut of wool impossibly fine, impeccably smooth. I love you." Mama stared at me with watery eyes and bobbed her head once, taking my affection in without response. "You'll want to be sure to collect all those coins, madam," my godfather told her, adjusting the quilt under his other arm. "After all, you've earned each and every one of them." Without hesitation or shame, Mama dropped to the ground and began scooping them into her dearie apron. They clinked with more merriment than seemed appropriate for the moment. "Ready?" my godfather asked me. I stared at Mama, willing her to look up at me, willing her to say something, anything, but she didn't, too fixed on her foraging, lest any coin escape her count. That warm rush of affection I'd felt just moments ago began to harden inside my heart. It was tiny, just the size of a kernel for now, but as pointed as a barb. I nodded, ready. All right. We have more of the father on pages 33 and 34. This is a scene where the father has accrued some debts in the city of this kingdom, and to pay off those debts, they don't have money. They have no money to pay off these debts, so they're going to sell one of their kids. Yeah. So they've gone to one of the temples, and let's see, they've gone to one of the temples, and one of the postulates. One of the sisters in the temple is like, I'll take that one because that's the 13th child, and that's a pretty big deal. And well, Sister Inez said, both of her voices reverberating with impatience. Papa cleared his throat, looking uneasy. He crossed the courtyard and whispered into her ear. Though I couldn't hear exactly what he said, I did register the moment she understood his tale. Her eyes darted from Papa to me with alarm. Disgust settled over her features like a fine veil. I see, she said archly, taking a noticeable step from my father. Get out of line, Hazel, Mama snapped. You shouldn't even be here. Though I knew she meant here as now in this moment, her words sliced deep. I shouldn't have been here, in this family, now or ever. What's happening? I dared to whisper. It was unnerving to be on this side of the courtyard, seeing all my brothers and sisters staring at me. I kept a careful distance from Mama. She tended to speak with her hands when agitated, and since my presence so often went unregistered, I'd learned it was best to stay out of striking distance. Your father has accumulated a bit of debt in town, the idiot, she muttered. Her teeth were pressed so tightly together, I feared she'd turn them to powder. More than any pilgrimage coins could cover. So we need to find payment where we might. Payment, I echoed, my brow furrowing. I swept my eyes around the courtyard, trying to imagine what we were meant to be selling in the temple. We left all our bundles of firewood and tanned hides at home. And then she realizes, oh my gosh, we're selling off one of my siblings. So that happens. Mama's nostrils flared. You shouldn't have to. Oh, Mama's nostrils flared. I shouldn't have to, she corrected me bitterly, but you're still here, taking up space and money that we can't afford not to give you. So now one of my children, one of my real children, will be torn from their home. One of my children will be gone, forced to worship a God I hate, a God I should have given you to long ago. You can't, I repeated, feeling small and stupid and unable to come up with a better argument. You just can't. Okay, so Papa, Sister Inez chooses one of the children and gives Papa a bag of silver. And she handed Papa a small purse of yellow and gold twill. He weighed it in the palm of his hand, hefting it up and down as if that was all it took to count it, then nodded. Which one? He dared to ask, and every muscle within me tensed. So that's a look at the mother and father in this story. They've become mercenary people. They've become desperate in their need for money. And they're not just needing money to feed their kids. They have become, I want to say, they are destitute. They need money for food. They really do. But the father is drinking away their money. And the mother, we'll see when Godfather Death comes for Hazel, the mother is drunk. She's intoxicated because she also has started just drinking away their money. So they're not really spending the money on the kids anymore either. They have sunk so low that they're not taking care of the house that they live in. They're not taking care of the animals that they have. These animals that provide them with food and milk and whatnot, they're not really taking care of the animals anymore either. These two parents have just sunk low, and it's a shame. It's really a shame. They're not upstanding people. Right. We do have the character of Bertie, which I've mentioned, that little boy. He's 1 year older than Hazel, and he and Hazel seem to have a good relationship. He seems to look out for her a bit. You saw in the scene where, the birthday cake was being distributed, when Hazel didn't get a piece, he's like, hey, you forgot to give a piece to Hazel. He cares about his sister. She's a year younger, and so they're very close in age. That closeness seems to matter, okay? Then we have a character named Kieran. Kieran is a farm boy who we meet a little bit further into the story. After Hazel has been collected by Death, after she's been collected and then taken to the Between, and she's learned how to be a healer, and then she comes to a cabin that Death has created for her. She is a healer, and she's able to heal people in the nearby community. Kieran is a farm boy there. She heals his uncle. Yeah, so she's kind of sweet on Kieran, and he's kind of sweet on her. So that Kieran is a character who matters to our story. Other characters in our story are the royal family. Now, as we read in the Grimm's fairy tale, the king is a a pretty major character in the plot. Okay, and once again, the king is a pretty major character in the plot of the 13th Child. Hazel does have to come to grips with whether or not to heal the king of a pretty serious disease that's happening. It's called the shivers. So when we get to the royal family, they matter. So the royal family are King Rene Marnaine. I hope I'm pronouncing these correctly. They've got like a French feel to them. Okay. Then there's Queen Aurelie. We don't get to really spend time with her. We do meet her early in the story when Hazel is still a child. There's Princess Bellatrix. We have Crown Prince Leopold. I consider him to be a complete twat. We'll learn more about him later. There's Margot. She is not part of the royal family, but when we meet her later in the story, when Hazel does go to deal with the king, Margot is there, and she is someone who gives prophecies. She has visions from the Holy First, and she gives these visions to the king and to the king's family, and she's like, oh, this is going to happen next. This is going to happen next. You should act this way because this is going to happen. She's that person. She also has a very close relationship with Princess Euphemia, and she's one of our cute, darling characters. Euphemia is just this wonderful, cute kid. Okay, she's this little princess, but she's not one of those bratty princesses. She's a good, sweet child, and Margot does like act almost as a governess to Euphemia. All right. Another character we have is Celeste Alari. She's a medicine woman. She's a medicine woman in the Gravia Forest. We see her early in the story when Hazel is still a kid, before she goes off with Godfather Death. She visits Celeste and learns a few like medicine tricks. She learns about some of the herbs and flowers in the forest, and she's starting to learn how to be a healer even before her godfather shows up and tells her, you're going to be a healer. I thought that was a nice extra bit. Then there is Sister Inez, who we saw when we were talking about one of the kids having to be sold. Sister Inez is, she's I don't know if you call her a prelate. She's a devotee to the Divided One. And that's one of the gods that we're going to talk about next. Okay, so our pantheon, how we want to call it. We have three gods in this theology here. We have the Holy First, and the Holy First is the one who comes to the father and mother first. I mean, when they are figuring out, oh my gosh, we're gonna have a 13th child, what do we do? The Holy First appears to them and is like, hey, I'll take your 13th child when she's born and I will raise it. And they're like, no, we don't know that we trust you. You're not right for our kid. Okay, fine. She goes off. And then the Divided One comes next. The Divided One, you guys, I am telling you, this is the devil. The Divided One is a foil for the devil. The Divided One is a fractured God. There are many, many, many God spirits within this one creature, this one creation, this one entity. And the two that we see most often are Calamity and Felicity. These two like appear within that entity most often. They come forward and there's like a divided face, and like Calamity will speak and then Felicity will speak. And sometimes when they speak, you hear all of the voices together at once inside this creature. But this is a foil for the devil. This is an allegory for the devil because there is so much chaos and weirdness that goes on around this character. Lies and deceit and chaos. Okay, and then the third god that we have is the dreaded end. And this is death. This is the character who, when the other two are not successful in claiming the 13th child, he comes up and he goes, I'll take the kid. I'll do it. And the parent, the father and mother are like, yes, you can have our kid after she's born. Those are our characters. Now let's talk a little bit about what goes on in our story. Because as I've been talking about all along, and as we saw in the fairy tale, the Godfather Death does come to the christening, does come to the birth of Hazel, but doesn't stay and doesn't take Hazel away. I mean, Godfather Death does come to her birth. And it's like, hey, she's lovely. She's beautiful. I'm so excited that this is going to be my goddaughter. Here's a lovely quilt with some, gold embroidery on it. Here you go. Name her Hazel. See you, bye. And he's out of there. I mean, he dips. Okay. So for years, the family does have to raise Hazel as one of their own. And they resent this. The father and mother, they resent this. They are mad. They thought that they would be able to just hand off this kid and never have the responsibility for it. So they didn't think they would have to spend money on feeding her or clothing her or taking care of her. They certainly don't send her to school. They don't do anything like that. So she has to do everything on her own. She is on her own. She's sleeping in the barn. Okay. The only thing she has to her name is that quilt. And the mother wanted to sell the quilt. And the father was like, hold up. I bet we'd get in trouble for doing that. I bet Death would be mad if we sold off the quilt that he gave her. We better just leave that to her. So for 12 years, she's had this quilt and she like fixes it and has to repair it when it gets smudged and, ripped or something. So she's taking care of this quilt as best she could because it's the only thing she has that is her own. This poor kid. Nah. Okay. So on her 12th birthday, Godfather Death does come to her and is like, hey, happy birthday, let's go. And he takes her to a place called the Between, capital B, Between. And it is just a fantasy realm, okay? But it is a fantasy spiritual realm. And when they get there, it is just basically nothingness. It is nothing. And Hazel's afraid. She's like, well, how do I live here? How do we survive here? What's going on? There's nothing around. It's just like not cobalt. It's just, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. I probably should have tabbed that page to read it for you guys, but it's just a basalt. That's the word I'm looking for. Basalt. You guys, I can't even speak words. It's a basalt platform that they're standing on. It's basalt ground. And she says, there's nothing here. There's no trees. And he's like, I can make you some trees. And he does. He like makes a beautiful tree of these like flowering buds and leaves. And it's beautiful. And she's like, it's alone. And she recognizes the loneliness of it because she's been alone all her life. And he's like, oh, okay. So he makes an entire forest of these trees. And she said, this is amazing and great. Then he makes this little cabin and he puts her in the cabin and there's a birthday cake for her because it's her birthday. And there's all these books, tons of books. And let's go to page 71. I did 77. Then I caught sight of the books on my nightstand and the books lined alongside my bed. I turned slowly, taking in the cottage once more. Nearly every flat surface within it was covered with them. Big books, small books, books made of leather, stacks of paper bound with glue and thread, titles in gold foil winked in the firelight, and other tomes seemed to have no name at all. There were texts and treatises, manuals and instructions. I flipped through the pages of a large one near me, and my stomach curdled. It was an anatomy book, chock full of illustrations and diagrams. There were striated muscles rendered in lurid shades of red ink, drawings of the human eye, pulled back layer by layer, and a tangled mess of squiggly lines I couldn't identify. The thought of them being somewhere inside me made my throat clench, fighting back a wave of nausea, and I suddenly regretted eating any of the cake at all. I quickly shut that tome and scanned the room, trying to take stock of the sheer volume, but failing. Did Merrick, I corrected myself, truly expect me to read these, and not only read them, but be able to understand them and discuss what I'd learned? The cottage felt too full, as if every one of the words on every one of the pages in each and every one of the books was suddenly before me, physical beings to be noticed. And that's why I wrote the TBR pile out there in the margin. I was reading this as I was doing one of these tags here on BookTube, the TBR tag. Yeah. I was like, yep, I feel your pain, Hazel. I feel it. Now, what's interesting is she has all these books that she has to read, and she does start reading. And I put here on page 77, she's basically in this cabin, and she's reading these books to learn how to be a healer. She's learning her craft. Okay, she's learning this art. Did I write that down? She's learning. Yes, she's learning the medical info, but she's in a cabin where everything is not as it seems. Okay. Anytime she needs something, it appears. When she finishes, eating her dinner, new dinner appears in, this little cubby hole for her. When she needs her dishes cleaned, new dishes appear. I mean, things keep appearing for her. When she's done with, the dress that she's wearing, there's a new dress hanging in the little wardrobe. Okay. Everything she needs just appears for her. When she tries to go outside, storms appear and push her back in so that she stays in the cabin to keep reading. When she needs a new candle, a new one appears. Okay, she's got lights. Everything that she needs is there. So it's like she's being watched. Okay, and so I wrote here, she's a prisoner and she's being watched. It was just unsettling. It's a little bit odd, right? It's like she's got everything she needs, but she's being monitored. It just felt like she was being monitored. And we didn't address the fact that she's being monitored. Okay, I read for hours. I read till my limbs grew heavy with sleep. I read through the pins and needles as they woke. I read until the words no longer made sense, then stood, stretching, and searched the little cottage for a medical dictionary I was certain I'd spotted the night before. I looked up the words I'd had trouble pronouncing, let alone understanding, and went back to the first book, determined to reread those sections with fresh eyes. Okay, you guys, recall, she is 12 years old. And her mother didn't let her go to school. And I felt that was important to point out because she's 12 years old. She wasn't allowed to go to school, but she is reading medical texts and she's looking up medical words in a medical dictionary to help her understand the medical text a little better. She is extremely learned for a 12-year-old. And I just found that interesting. That took me out of the story. I'm just going to say on page 77, I got out of the story enough to write here, her mother didn't let her go to school and she's 12. So I don't believe this. That's what I wrote in the margin. That was the unbelievable thing in the story. Everything else, I mean, it's a fantasy story. It's a retelling of a fairy tale. Everything else, I'm like, I was totally fine with. But that got me. That got me. And I thought I needed to bring it up. Everything else is interesting and fun and fantasy and that made me go, okay. Now the reason that she's learning all this stuff, the reason that she is being like forced to stay in the cabin is so that she can get this education. So for a full solid year, she reads these medical books for a year. And then, when she turns 13, Merritt comes back. Here's your birthday cake. And how is the books? Let's talk about them. And actually, when he comes back on her 13th birthday and he's like, hey, here's your birthday cake. Let's talk about the books you've been reading. She's mad. She's angry with him, as one would be. She's like, you left me here for a year. I've had no one to talk to for a year. And now you want to talk about the books I've been reading? And he's like, oh, it didn't occur to me that you would be upset by that. Weren't you alone at your house with your family? Yeah. So they do have to work on their communication together. Okay. They do have to do that. And now she's been there for a year. She's learned all this stuff. She's ready to become a healer. And he tells her, this is your big gift and you can do it. You can do this. I've got another cabin for you. Let's go. And he takes her to, did I write down the village? Yes. He takes her to a cabin in an area near Alatoy. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. An area called Alatoy. And it's in this kingdom near where our royal family is going to be, but she needs to learn how to, practice this art on real people now. She needs to be a healer of real folks. So it takes her to this new cabin. And this is where we meet Kieran. I mentioned Kieran in our character list. He's the farm boy who his uncle is ill. And he comes to the healer's cabin, knocks on the door, and he's like, hey, is the healer here? Where is she? And Hazel has to say, well, I'm the healer, but she's 13. So Kieran's looking at her like, oh, you are, well, let's go. My uncle's sick. I got to do something about this. Come with me. And so she does go to the house where the uncle is, and Death comes with her. He doesn't just leave her this time. He is there kind of over her shoulder. Kieran can't see him, but Death can give her some instructions, can kind of help her through this first one. And Death doesn't just leave her this time at this cabin. They're working on that communication a little bit. So he's able to kind of guide her and help her get her footing, get her senses about her, and how she's going to be a healer of real humans and real people, yada, yada, yada. Now, he doesn't just stay with her for the rest of her life, okay? He doesn't do that. He's Death. He has some responsibilities he needs to take care of from time to time. And so he does go off for, weeks at a time and then months at a time. But he does always come back on her birthday. So on her birthday, each year, he does return to her and they have cake. He makes some big, elaborate, very sugary cake, and they eat cake. And he tells the story of how he came to be her godfather. So each year on her birthday, he repeats the story. And that's actually our prologue. The prologue, pages 1 through 8, he's telling her on one of her birthdays, the story of, there was this man who fell in love with this beautiful woman, and he wasn't a very wise man. He was very foolish, and they ended up with 12 kids. And then one night she said, hey, I'm going to have a 13th. And they needed to do something about that. So the Holy First came, and then the divided one came, and then the dreaded end came, and they decided they would give their child to the dreaded end. Yeah. He tells her that story each year on her birthday. Now, I think what's happened is each year on her birthday, he adds a little more to the story. I think he's divulging little bits more each year because I know that he doesn't give her everything all at once. We, the readers, certainly don't get everything all at once. We get facets of her gift explained to us throughout the story. There are parts of her gift that we don't really fully understand until further in, until some of these climaxes and crises are happening. Yeah, there are things that we don't get to know until like the climaxes. Now, I want to give a great shout out to Nursery Rhymes on page 224. 224. We have, I mentioned the king has a disease called the shivers, and true to nursery rhyme form, the kids in the kingdom have made up this just horrible nursery rhyme about it, okay? You guys out there might know that Ring Around the Rosie is about like the Black Death, right? Ring Around the Rosie. Well, these kids in this setting, in this fantasy story, have made up one called Little Arnold's Head Did Ache. His eyes began to quiver. The gold rushed out, his mother cried. Her boy had caught the shivers. His body danced, his body jerked. The brilliance turned to black. His mother sobbed, his mother wailed. Her boy would not come back. And so I wrote here, nice shout out to nursery rhymes. It's just wonderful. I also underlined children's games were often cruel, taking things of nightmares and setting them to music and dance. Absolute truth. I mean, so many nursery rhymes that we learned when we were kids are, London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. There are a lot of nursery rhymes that are just bleak and horrifying if you know their origination. So it's kind of like there's a little fractured fairy tale in the middle of our fractured fairy tale. Okay, now one of the themes that it's safe to share, that I don't think I'm giving anything away by sharing this one with you, is on page 282. Page 282. One of the divided ones, one of the gods within the divided one, is saying, no one life is greater or lesser than any other. In the end, all mortals are dust. And I wrote to the side, awesome sentiment of angst. I'm not going to tell you how that has come about or why that's being said, because that we'll talk about in the third part of this video, which I think we're ready to dive into. Now we are diving into part 3 of our discussion. This is a deep dive discussion with spoilers. Usually at this part of a video, I would hold up the hashtag sign and tell you guys to like mute until I got past a certain, part that I'm reading in a book. But this is too long. This is just too much. So we're going to dive into this. I'm going to invite you guys, if you don't want to be spoiled, if you don't want to hear all of the twists, all of the developments, all of the things that happen. Now is the time to end the video. Give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Come back to this video after you've read The 13th Child by Erin A. Craig, and share in the comments below your thoughts as well after you've read it. For those of you who have already read it or who are just dying to know all the things, even without reading it, here we go. We're going to dive in. We're going to finish reading Godfather Death from the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. I'm going to go back to the last page and read the very ending for you. We recall that the physician had thwarted death a second time. He had gone against death's wishes a second time. And the death took him to that dark cave where all those candles were. And the physician says, "Show me the light of my life," said the physician, and he thought that it would be very tall. Death pointed to a little end which was just threatening to go out and said, "Look, it is there." "Ah, dear godfather," said the horrified physician, "light a new one for me. Do it for love of me, that I may enjoy my life, be king, and the husband of the king's beautiful daughter." "I cannot," answered Death. "One must go out before a new one is lighted." "Then place the old one on a new one that will go on burning when the old one has come to an end," pleaded the physician. Death behaved as if he were going to fulfill his wish, and took hold of a tall new candle. But as he desired revenge, he purposely made a mistake in fixing it, and the little piece fell down and was extinguished. Immediately, the physician fell on the ground, and now he himself was in the hands of Death. Now, of course, Hazel doesn't do quite what our physician did. Let's go back to the Sandy Synopsis, as we do in our usual reviews, but this time I'm going to give the Sandy Synopsis with some things that could have been spoilery. All right, Mama and Papa Trepas reject the Holy First, reject the Divided One, and accept a deal with the dreaded End to give up their 13th child. But when Hazel's born, Death comes, gives her an expensive quilt, and leaves her for her parents to raise after all. It's as if he has no concept of the passage of time in this story, until Hazel jeopardizes her amount of time, which Death has to bargain for. The bargain is this: Hazel will be a healer, and she will have 3 long lives, but she will be required to see and do nothing to stop when the Death's head has come for a patient. Okay, we talked about, in the earlier parts of this review, we talked about the fact that Hazel has this gift. We saw it on the inside flap. We talked about Hazel is given this gift of being a healer. She becomes someone that people seek to heal others. I mean, when the king becomes ill with the shivers, someone in that court sends for Hazel at her cabin in Alatoy. They send for her to come to the kingdom and save the king. Okay, so she is sent for. She is that famous. She is that well known. All right, she has become what Death wanted her to become. She's a famous healer. But the catch is when she's near the patient, she looks at a patient, she touches the patient, she looks into their face. If the patient can't be healed, she sees this Death's head. She sees this skull over the patient. And when she sees that, she knows, oh, crap, I can't save this person. And in fact, it is her duty to complete the process to kill the person. It's her duty to give that person a peaceful, calm, quick end. It's what she's supposed to do. So when she goes to the kingdom and she sees the king and he has the shivers and she looks at him, she sees the Death's head over him. And she's like, oh, crap. She comes to a point where she realizes she's supposed to give the king this swift, compassionate end. But if she does that, she's probably going to be hung for treason or beheaded for treason. She's going to be in trouble for that, right? She's supposed to be saving the king, not killing him. And if she's the one who kills him, boy, is she going to be in trouble. So she knows she's got a problem. She knows she's in trouble. She's got to do something. And there are other reasons why she thinks, boy, I should probably be saving this king. Okay, so we're going to look at that. There are similarities to the fairy tale, and there are some differences from the fairy tale in the 13th Child. Obviously, it's a fractured fairy tale. So let's talk about some of those. The big, huge, obvious one, we have a girl, Hazel, instead of the boy physician. There's your big obvious one. Hazel is, she is a likable character. She has flaws. I mean, she is a flawed gal. You guys, she has so many crisis points where you look at her and think, wow, I might not have done it that way. Because she's real. She's real on the page. You feel for her. You see her and you go, wow, kid, I feel for you. Some of the decisions she has to make, you're just like, wow, I understand that this was hard. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you feel for her. Other diversions, the king, he has multiple children instead of just one daughter. Yeah, he has Prince Leopold. We're going to go to a character list and talk about that. Some of the other differences, Hazel learns her craft. Remember we talked about in the second part of this discussion, Hazel learns her craft when she's in that cabin at the between. She learns her craft. She learns from those medical books. Even though she's only 12, she learns from those medical books and learns all the different ways to heal and take care of people. She has a garden there at that cabin. You know, when she starts learning about different herbs and different plants, they appear in her garden. Okay, and so because she gets everything she needs while she's there, she's being monitored, and she learns how to use those different plants and herbs and how to distill them and make them into different medicines that she needs. She learns all of that. She learns her craft. So it's not just her power that she uses when she's healing these people. She knows the science behind it. She understands what's going on behind it. That is so important, because when she loses her power, she is still able to heal people. She's still able to understand the science behind it and the why behind it. So she's still able to, make a medicine, make a balm, make a salve. She's still able to do these things after she loses her power, which is brilliant. I love that. So it's not just she's, like a chosen one who can do these magical powerful things. She is a smart girl who learned what she needed to learn, and she can still take care of herself even after she no longer has that fantasy power. Magic. Okay. What else is a difference, a diversion from the tale? The devil character, the divided one. That character plays a really prominent role in this story. And I'm telling you, that character just plays a really prominent role in creating chaos and mayhem. And we're going to talk about that. But some of the similarities, obviously, Death. Death is here. Death is the Godfather, and Death does get mad when Hazel, I want to say when Hazel thwarts Death, but when Hazel goes against the death's head that she sees, when Hazel goes against that and saves the king, when she does that, Death does get mad. And we're going to look at that. Why not look at that right now? Can we on page 155 in the fairy tale, Death does get mad. He says, but Death came to the physician, looking very black and angry, threatened him with his finger and said, "You have overreached me. This time I will pardon it, as you are my godson, but if you venture it again, it will cost you your neck, for I will take you away with me." Okay, Godfather Death is mad at the physician, and he's mad because you have overreached me. This is the reason he's mad at the physician. Okay, he's mad because his power has been usurped. Okay, Death in the Brothers Grimm fairy tale story, Death did not get what he wanted. He didn't get what was rightfully his property. He didn't get the king. So he was mad about that. That was his reason for being angry. Now, in the fractured fairy tale, in Erin Craig's story, we have on page 328, the reason that Death got mad here. Hazel saved the king. And we'll talk about how she did it in a minute, okay? But Hazel saves the king, and Death comes to the place where she is, and he's like mad. I mean, he's angry. He's He literally backhands her against a wall. He crossed the cavern with single-minded fury, faster than my eyes could take in, skittering directly toward me. When he spoke, it was in the voice of my worst nightmares, the voice of hot embers, of brimstone and sulfur, molten tar and venom. What have you done? And she tries to explain to him. Merrick, I can explain. I can, and she doesn't get it out of her mouth before he's yelling at her. Let's see, a hit was enough force to shatter every bone in my body, but I miraculously, horribly did neither. What have you done? He demanded again. He's yelling at her. There's more yelling, more yelling, more yelling. I'm sorry, I cried. There's more yelling. You saw the death's head, he snapped, cutting off my pleading. She shrinks back into the ground. She's afraid that he's going to hit her again. Then he says, that was your candle, Hazel. That was you. Do you have any idea what I had to do to get those candles? Candles representing her lives. Da, da, da. So he's upset because she has given away one of her candles. He's upset she's given away one of her lives. He's upset because that has happened. She has basically forfeited one of her lives. So he's mad about that. He's mad about what he had to do to get those candles. And we will learn later what he had to do to get them. But here's the other thing he's mad about. He's mad because he cares about her. He's mad because he loves this girl. She is his godchild, and he cares about her. Death in this story has a totally different reason behind his anger. Yes, she went against his will. Yes, she disobeyed him. But he's mad that she disobeyed him because it means she has one less life to live. What is this? She's trying to explain to him that she did this, that she gave up one of her lives because she wanted to help others. Okay, she's doing it because there's a war going on, and all the orphans. His daughter wrote him a letter, and everything I said sounded small and wrong. Excuses too minuscule to cover the full expanse of what I'd done. There will always be wars. There will always be orphans, he's saying to her. Yes, but I faltered again. I wasn't going to persuade him to my side with the scope of the good I had wanted to do. He didn't care about that. He cared about me, his goddaughter, the one mortal in all the world he held in his heart. And yeah, she goes through and explains to him that if she had done what the death's head had wanted her to do, she would have the blood of thousands on her hands. She believes that by saving the king, she has prevented the war from escalating, blah, 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 blah. And let's see, you have every right to be upset with me, but I couldn't have so many souls haunting me through eternity, Merrick. I just couldn't. And he doesn't understand that. She's telling him that the ghosts of the people she has assisted to to death, they follow her. And he's like, I didn't realize that. And so he's going to help her, which is lovely. Okay. He loves her. He cares for her. The heat of his anger is not because she usurped his power. The heat of his anger is because she has given away one of her lives, and he loves his daughter, and he's upset that she did that. That's why he's angry. And that, yeah. So yes, Death gets mad. That's one of the similarities in our fairy tale and our fractured fairy tale, but it's not for the same reason. Death is a little bit different in our fractured fairy tale from our Grimm's fairy tale. He's a little bit different. Now, we do need to go back to our character list, because we looked at our cast of characters in the earlier review, but I want to go back to the characters now and dive into a couple of them a little more deeply, because there are so many things going on with these characters. We mentioned Bertie, the brother who was 1 year older than Hazel. Bertie is, he's such a good, kind, loving brother. He cares about Hazel. They're so close in age, and he's protective of her. He cares about her. You can tell he cares about her when we first meet him in the beginning of this story. By the end of the story, he is a completely different person. He goes into the service of the divided one because in that chapter, when we saw that the father couldn't pay his debts, couldn't pay his bills, and someone had to be sold off, it was Bertie who got sold off. And it's heart-wrenching, and it's such a shame. The scene where he's sold off it's gut-wrenching, because Sister Inez, the prelate who is like, I want the 13th child, and Papa tells her, well, he goes and whispers in her ear. We don't see what's whispered in her ear, but we know what he's telling her is, you can't take our 13th child because she already belongs to the dreaded end. We know that's what's been said. And Sister Inez looks at Hazel with like disgust, and she's pissed off about it. Okay, fine, get out of line. So she's out of line. The next one that Sister Inez chooses is Bertie. She takes the boy. She takes Bertie. And Bertie is like screaming and kicking and fighting against this as he is dragged through these doors into the service of the divided one, into the service of the devil, basically. So he's taken off to be a service of the fractured. So the next time we see him, he is a changed individual. The next time we see him is when Hazel has returned to the kingdom, and she is going to be tasked with saving the king if she can. And she has been bumped on the head. So she wakes up from being unconscious, and she's in the divided one's temple. She's at this, she's in like a sick room for the divided one's people. And there are all these orphans in the room with her. These are orphans because their parents have been murdered by warriors coming from a nearby kingdom. There's a war going on that we haven't been really talking about much, because the king and his court aren't really paying attention to the war. It doesn't really matter to them. They're not that concerned about it. These orphans are here. Our girl Hazel is here, and Bertie comes in. He's in service to the fractured now. He's in service to the divided one. He's no longer in chains and shackles, but he's covered in scars because, as a prelate for the divided one, he's been like, trigger warning, okay, for anyone who has dealt with this in the past. He has been cutting himself. He has been harming himself. This self-harm is somewhat similar to like flagellation of the monks back in the day, right? It's a way of penance. It's a way of proving your devotion to the divided one. And he's been doing this. So he's covered in scars, and he shows up, and he's like all excited that he sees his sister. He's like, oh, blessings. How fortuitous is this? I get to see you. And she's like, Bertie, I'm amazed that I get to see you. This is wonderful. And so they talk, and he's like, I will call on the divided one to come here and bless you. And he does. He blows on this whistle. The divided one shows up. So Calamite and Felicite, they're there as the divided one. And they're like, what do you want? Well, Bertie has to go off and do something else. So the divided one is standing there talking to Hazel. And that manipulation is happening. And that manipulation of Hazel that Calamity has been doing throughout this story just digs in a little more right here in that room. But we were talking about Bertie. Poor Bertie. He does go on quite the character arc of just a descent into, if not evil, it's at least a descent into madness. He is a character who delights in serving this evil god. He delights in serving the fractured, the chaos, the mayhem. He delights in it. And he thinks he's doing what is required of him, and he is happy to do it. It's a shame. It's sad. It breaks Hazel's heart. She is disappointed to see it. The things he has to do, she's disappointed in. Yeah. So let's go back and talk about Sister Inez. Okay. Sister Inez is the one who chose Bertie that fateful day when they were young. Bertie was 9. Hazel was 8. And Sister Inez was also young at that time. She claimed to be, well, I don't know if she claimed it at that time. I think, I would have to go back and check, but I think she claimed to be a 13th child herself there in the fractured ones or the divided ones temple. But she chose Bertie as the second choice, took him off. Sister Inez had anger toward Hazel at that time. I mean, a 13th child is not common, okay? Think about it, okay? For a peasant to have 12 children who survive, and then a 13th one come along, that you don't have a lot of money to take care of these kids, okay? So Sister Inez looked at Hazel with jealousy, and then when she learned that Hazel was favored by one of the gods already, she was certainly jealous and she was certainly resentful, okay? And that resentment we learn of again later, much later in the book, and I really am spoiling this, okay? Make sure you guys really are ready to be here for this, or step away and go read the book yourself, okay? Make sure you're really ready to hear this. There is a character named Margot. We mentioned her earlier in the other portion of the video. Margot is an oracle for the Holy First, but she's really not. She's a liar. She's a scumbag. She is actually Sister Inez. Her jealousy and her hatred and her evilness and being in service to this devil god has made her horrible. And she asked Calamity to help her destroy Hazel. She wanted to be better than, she wanted to be above Hazel. She wanted to be a favored 13th child. So she asked Calamity to help her create chaos and destroy, basically. And Calamity's like, yeah, I'm down with that, because Calamity is all for chaos and destruction. It is, I'm telling you, that character is an allegory for the devil. So Calamity helps Sister Inez become and pretend to be a prelate for the Holy First, helps her pretend to be an oracle. So she goes to the kingdom, she goes to the king, she gets into the king's court, pretending to be a disciple of the Holy First. She wears very long sleeve clothes, gloves, long dresses. She covers herself completely as if she's being very modest, when in fact what she's doing is she's hiding those scars, those same types of scars that Birdie had. Because when she was in service to the Divided One, she did the same type of self-harm that Birdie did, okay? So she's hiding all those scars with all the modest clothing that she wears. We do see those scars a bit later when Hazel attacks her in the climax, which is wonderful. Okay, so Margot she's a duplicitous character. She is not who she says she is when she gets to the kingdom. And she's feeding lies to the king, which is horrible, of course. Of course. All right, now keep in mind, she is acting as a governess almost to little Princess Euphemia, who is just a sweet, darling, wonderful child. And that does come to be a problem for Euphemia and everyone. It's terrible, awful. We have a character named, I think it's Bowdoon. I believe that's how you would pronounce it. He is the half-brother to the king. So King Rene Marnaine, he has a half-brother. And he is quite jealous of this half-brother because the half-brother is quite jealous of him. They grew up kind of together, and Bowdoon, I think that's how you say it. He used to try to take things from Renee, okay? Things, not just like toys, but important things too. And he is the one who is to the north and sending troops and warriors to attack different villages in our kingdom, okay? That's why we have orphans in the Divided One's temple. That's why we have problems. That's why we have a war happening, because Bowdoon is creating some problems. So the king wants to capture him, wants to put an end to that, and he does. We do end up capturing him and we do behead him, okay? We do slice his head off. He is executed, and that execution is horrifying on many levels for many reasons. And I won't spoil that part for you, but it is a bad thing. The king's daughter, Bellatrix, she's an older princess. She's not as young as Euphemia, but there is a rumor that Bellatrix might actually be Bowdoon's, I'm saying his name wrong, but might actually be Bowdoon's daughter instead of Renee's. I should have looked up how to pronounce his name, but you guys, I'm going to stop saying it now. But Bellatrix might not be Renee's daughter after all. So there is some question about that. So Renee is like, I think I should kill her too. So he is just descending into madness by the end of this book, but he's distracted by the fact that Euphemia gets sick and he needs to deal with that. We've left out Leopold. We need to talk about the Crown Prince Leopold. Now, in the earlier part of this video, I mentioned that I think Leopold is a twat. I really do. I think he's a twat, even though he goes on, like toward the end of the book, he goes on a bit of an arc where he's starting to become a more reasonable character and he's starting to do some introspection. I still think he's a bit of a twat, okay? Here's why. When we first meet him, he is a child. We first meet him when Hazel is a child. Hazel at age 8 and Bertie at age 9 are among their siblings when their mother and father take them into the part of the kingdom where the king and the queen and the prince and the princess, Bellatrix and Leopold at the time, Euphemia is not born yet, they are going to be in the streets handing out coins or throwing coins at the peasantry for some type of parade. And I forget the name of the day, but it's a special celebration day. They'll be flinging coins at the peasantry. So mother and father have the kids lining up in various parts of the street to accept coins from the royal family. And they've given them different hats to wear at different times so that they can go to different parts of the street and get more than one coin. Okay. Leopold recognizes Hazel the second time that she shows up. Like she's in one place, gets a coin, and she's so excited about the coin because it's like not a, I think it's a gold coin instead of copper. It's a better coin than what she thought she was going to get. And she's so excited that she has it. And she's so pleased because Mama is going to be happy about the worth of this coin. She's got it in her fist, and like enough tumultuousness is happening that she doesn't get to change her hat. She doesn't get to change her appearance before Leopold sees her a second time. And he's like, hey, you already have a coin. What are you trying to do? You're trying to take advantage of the royalty. And Hazel is like, screw you. I've had enough of this day. I've had enough of this family. I've had enough of this. And she lays into him. And she's like, I don't care if you're the crown prince. You suck. And she lays into him and she lets him know, how dare you, go around with your entitlement, making me feel less than because I'm trying to get a coin. This is all the coin I get. This is all the coin I have. And she really lays into him and like gives him a lesson on class differentiation at 8 years old. But she does this and she shames him and he feels shame. And he's like, oh, screw you then. And he throws all of the coins he has left, just like at her into the crowd. And the jostling of that crowd makes her like fall and she loses her coin completely. And Leopold, goes back into his little carriage and he's mad and miffed and huffed and off he goes. So this is this is how we meet Leopold. She is giving him a dressing down for being an entitled prick. And he throws coins at her and leaves. So that's how we meet him. That's the type of character he is. And he remains that type of character even when we meet him in the kingdom later. Okay, he's the crown prince. Okay, so when Hazel is called to go and heal the king later in life, when she's 18 years old, he is there. So he's like, what, 19, 20? They're about the same age. And he is still this entitled prick. He is still this jerk. I'm sorry. I hope no one is offended by the way I'm talking about him. But he is still this entitled jerk, all right? And he considers himself above everyone else. He goes around, he's a ladies' man kind of guy, and he anticipates that all the ladies will see him as, this pillar of strength and fabulousness, right? He's arrogant. He's the crown prince. And Hazel remembers him. And remembers that he's not all that. And when he acts this way, still in this future, she's like, oh, he's still that way. Great. I just need to avoid him. And he's incensed by the fact that she's avoiding him. This commoner is avoiding him. But he does remember her from way back in the day. And we learn later that he does remember her. And we learn later that he is shamed by the fact that she still sees him as this entitled jerk. Okay. And he does go off to war. He is so upset by the thing she finally just comes out and says to him that he's chagrined by this. And he goes to war. And he is at war for about a year, I guess. He's there for quite some number of months. And he does go through this sort of transformation. He realizes, and he sees death around him. He sees other people dying for a cause, and he helps to capture the half brother to the king, right? He helps to capture that man. He brings him back to justice. He grows up a little bit. So we see that he has grown up a little bit, but he and his like soldier comrades come to breakfast one morning and he acts like a complete jerk. He's rude. He says some rude things. And I'm like, well, he didn't really change at all. He just thinks he changed. And then he has a conversation with Hazel and he's like, I'm so sorry that I was being kind of rude at breakfast, but I had to do that for my friends. Ha ha ha. No, you don't have to do that for your friends. You jerk. Maybe I'm not making it clear that I think Leopold is a jerk. He was going on a bit of an arc. He really was, but he was still acting a part, and I didn't like that. He did start to come around. He did start to act more mature. He did start to act like, okay, yes, I care about Hazel. I care about what happens to her. I care about what happens to my family. I care about what happens to my kingdom. He was devastated. I won't say he was devastated, but he was shocked and he was concerned. He was disappointed. That's the right word for it. He was disappointed when his father did go through with beheading the half brother. He was disappointed in that and the other things that took place on that platform that day. He was disappointed in that. And he did try to help Hazel come to grips with what was going on. I mean, he did show some maturity and some growth in that part. So that was better. So I could understand Hazel having feelings for him. I could understand that sort of romance arc happening between the two of them. I could understand that happening. Okay, but let's go to page 406, shall we? Where we are looking at Leopold. And we have Hazel looking at him. I studied him, unable to reconcile my initial memories of Leopold with the prince who sat before me now. He was a puzzle piece, worn too out of shape to ever slide back into his intended position. Perfect. That is exactly right. Erin Craig summed up my feelings for Leopold perfectly right there. Okay. Now, we have multiple crisis moments for Hazel in this book. Multiple. You guys, so much was going on in this book. There's so much to talk about in this book. I'm not going to be able to cover it all for you, but we're going to cover a few of these crisis moments. And these are crisis moments that happen before we ever get to the climax of the book. I mean, the climax itself was obviously a big crisis point. So many of these. Let me see. I wrote them down. She gets blamed for the dreaded end, leaving her with the family. Okay. She was supposed to be taken away as a baby. The parents thought she would be taken away as a baby. And since she wasn't, she gets blamed for the fact that the dreaded end left her there, left her with the family, thus lessening the portion that everybody got at dinner time or at, the birthday times, right? So she gets blamed for that. The parents blame her. When Bertie, did I write this one down? Yeah, she gets blamed for Bertie being chosen to be a disciple of the divided one to pay their father's debts. Now think about all of that for a second. Their father should have been blamed for that situation. Their father is the one who got into debts with like drinking and gambling and all the things. Okay. Their father is the one who should have been blamed for the whole situation, not Hazel, but Hazel got blamed because she could not be picked to be sent away. She could not be picked to be sold. So since she could not be sold, one of the other siblings had to be sold. And it was Bertie who got chosen. And it wouldn't have mattered which one of them got chosen to be sold. The others would have blamed her. Well, I don't think Bertie would have blamed her, but the others would have blamed her because she didn't get sold. She couldn't get sold because she already belonged to the dreaded end. And that is ridiculous. It made me so angry. I'm like, it's not her fault that she didn't get sold off to the devil. It's the father's fault that Bertie did get sold off to the devil. I was angry at that. I'm not angry at the author. I'm angry at the characters. The author did an awesome job of making me angry at the characters. Okay. Next, another crisis moment is she couldn't save Kieran. Remember we mentioned Kieran, the farm boy? She fell in love with him. He fell in love with her. She was nearing her 18th birthday, and they decided they wanted to get married. They wanted to be married. And the dreaded end was telling her, you can't marry this guy. You can't. Keep in mind, the dreaded end, he's one of the gods, and the gods have what's called God sight. They are able to see all the different alternate realities that a person's life could have. They're able to see all the different trajectories your life might take. So the dreaded end is able to see what could become of Hazel if she were to marry Kieran. And he's like, you can't marry him. You can't. Now, she doesn't know that he can see all these different scenarios that might play out. Remember, they have to work on their communication, right? Okay, she doesn't know that he can see all these different permutations of her life if she were to marry Kieran or whatever, right? She doesn't know this. All she knows is he's telling her, you shouldn't marry this guy. You can't marry this guy. You've got all these other things you need to do in life. You've got all these lifetimes to live. You can't marry him. And so she's going to sneak away and do it. Well, on the day that they are supposed to sneak away and get married, they're going to sneak away at noon, right? Well, noon comes and Kieran's wagon hasn't come up to the cabin yet. And she's like, what's up with that? Maybe he just got delayed. So she waits a little bit and waits a little bit and waits a little bit. And so finally, at like 1 o'clock, she can't wait any longer. She's like, well, I don't know what's going on. So she goes to Kieran's house and he's chopping wood outside the house. And she's like, dude, what's up with you? And you were supposed to come by my house so we could elope. What are you doing? And she's thinking maybe he's just putting some wood, laying some wood up for his family before we leave. What's happening? Well, it turns out he was in an accident. He had bumped his head badly. He's got a bad concussion going on. He's making it worse by chopping wood. She's looking at him like, oh my gosh, this is serious. This is a big deal. His brain is swelling inside his skull. I've got to do something to fix this quickly or he's going to die. The man I love is going to die. So she gets him into the wagon. His dog does something that upsets him, and he's like yelling at the dog and frightens the dog. This is not his personality at all. He does not yell and frighten people. That's not the way he behaves at all. But he's injured. His brain is injured, right? Hold on to that thought. So she gets him back to her cabin. She's got him laid out on the kitchen table, and she's going to drill into his skull. Remember, she knows how to do this stuff because she studied it for a year. She's going to drill into his skull to relieve the pressure. She looks into his face and she sees the death's head. And she's like, oh no, no. I'm not going to let him die. So she has to relieve the pressure to fix it, to save him. And she does. She relieves the pressure, and dreaded end shows up. Her godfather shows up. He's like, what are you doing? Stop. He's supposed to die. You can't marry him. You can't. You need to let him die. And she's like, what are you talking about? So he takes her to the candles in the cavern to show her, look, you're supposed to let him go. Let's go to page 179. I don't know if the author intended this, but I saw a great, how did I write it? I wrote, Erin makes an awesome case for snuffing out domestic abusers, and I'm here for it. Because we see, we go to the cavern, we see the candles, and the dreaded end shows her Kieran's candle, and it's because she has just saved him, because she has just, alleviated the pressure on his skull. He is probably going to make it, but his candle is now causing mayhem and problems for all the candles around him in his life. He is no longer going to be the Kieran that she knows. He's got brain damage, and he's going to be a problem. He's going to be a mean person now, and abusive and bad. And she's able to see some of these things happening. And let's see. I studied the slate colored fire. Even Merrick's flames seemed to be in shadow. That's you? He nodded. I wanted to always be able to watch over you. Oh, he's saying that. Sorry. He nodded. I wanted to always be able to watch over you. His back teeth clicked together, and he considered his next words with care. Do you see now? I know this moment with the boy feels important to you, but in the whole of your life, this is just a brief breath. Oh, my darling Hazel, you'll go on and do more things, bigger things, without him. Let him die before he can hurt anyone. He would never, I exclaimed. I know, Kieran, he'd never hurt anyone. He hurt you already, he pointed out, gently picking up my hand and examining the ring of bruises winding round my wrist. That doesn't, he didn't mean to do that. He didn't know what he was doing. I fixed him. You saw I fixed him. I saw you stopped the swelling, Merrick allowed, but there was damage done. Too much damage that you could not right. But I did the surgery, I insisted. I did everything right. Oh, Hazel, Merrick said. I've never heard him so sad before. You were flawless, but some things cannot be fixed. You saw the changes in him already, the burst of anger, the surprising rage. Think of what that rage is capable of. Think of how many people he can hurt. And so, spoiler here, and so she does snuff out his candle there in that cave in the between. She snuffs out Kieran's candle, and so he dies on her kitchen table. And it's hard for her to do. I mean, she has to make that decision, but she's strong enough to do it. She recognizes she must. And that's why I wrote, Erin makes an awesome case for snuffing out domestic abusers. I'm like, yeah, go Erin. I'm down with that. Now, but that's a crisis moment for Hazel. We're talking about her crisis moments. Let's see. Also, she doesn't know what to ask of the divided one. When she's faced with having to save the king or do what the Death's Head is telling her to do and kill the king, she doesn't know what to do, and she doesn't know what to ask of the divided one. Remember, I said she had bumped her head. She woke up from a concussion. She has a concussion. She woke up from a mild coma, unconsciousness. She woke up in the divided one's temple. Okay, this is where she is, and there's the orphans are there around her. Bertie comes in and he summons the divided one to bless his sister. And when the divided one comes, she's like, I don't know what I want of you. And they're like, well, why are we here? And Calamity is manipulating her. Calamity manipulated her back when she was in the between. Like he showed up there and he was like, oh, what are you doing here? And he was manipulative to her there. He told her when she was there, you don't have to stay in the cabin. Even if the winds are blowing and stuff, you can come out of the cabin. You can wander anywhere you want to around here. You don't have to stay in the cabin. Yeah. Calamity, we're gonna look into that in a minute here. We're gonna look into Calamity and that naughtiness. But let's go to page 283. On page 283, we have Hazel basically sharing some of the reasons that she wants to save the king. None of them are because she likes the king. None of them are because she loves the sovereign. She has all these other reasons why she should, or why she thinks she should save this guy. Let's see. On page, Hazel is saying, but more people will die if the king does than if he lives, right? It seems so logical, don't you think? We don't think, came the god's reply. Dozens of voices speaking in unison, as loud as a droning beehive. We only know. Then you ought to know if I'm right, I snapped. Felicity wrested herself away from her holy collective. What is it you want from us, Hazel? What can we do to make this easier? I wasn't sure how to answer. When all was said and done, what did I want? I didn't want to kill the king, but I didn't want to let the Death's Head down. I didn't want people to die because he had, but I couldn't bear the thought that I'd endanger more people if he lived. I didn't want any of his blood on my hands. Each of my wishes felt impossible, even for the gods of fortune. Bertie called you here to give me a blessing, I finally said. He wants me to save the king and stop the war. But I pressed my lips together. I wasn't sure if I was holding back tears or a scream. Apparently, that's not what the Holy First wants. It's not what the death said, or my godfather, or any of the thousands of gods trapped inside you want. So I guess I want a bit of a blessing too. When it comes time to, I couldn't say the words, couldn't voice my treachery here in this room that housed so many unfortunate innocents. When I'm about to deal with King Marnaine, I would like everything to go right, to go well. I felt my eyes prick with tears. I don't know what lives I save by taking the king's, so I suppose I'm asking you to help ensure that my own is safe. Let me get out of this disaster with my own skin intact. There was a long moment of silence. Then Calamity patted my back. It takes a great amount of courage to show such cowardice, he said proudly, as if his commendation wasn't also an insult. I quite like you, mortal. Okay, and so he gives her a whistle flute type thing so that when she gets to the king's side and she's in, that moment of climax, she can blow the whistle and Calamity and Felicity will come and help her. Right. Yeah. I liked that humor of Calamity saying it takes a great amount of courage to show such cowardice. But he's right. She is being somewhat cowardly in that she wants to save her own skin, but she's also being reasonable. I mean, she's human, and the human in this reader was like, yeah, save your own skin. Yeah, okay, I get it. I'm there with you, Hazel. But you also want her to be the hero of the story. She is the main character. You want her to make her decision and either save the king or cut his throat and get out of there, right? I mean, you want her to make the decision. You don't want someone else to make the decision for her. Yeah. That was obviously a crisis moment for Hazel. There are lots of crisis moments for her before the ultimate crisis moment. The ultimate crisis moment comes when Euphemia is sick. Euphemia gets this shivers disease. Just because Hazel saves the king doesn't mean that she has solved the disease of the shivers. She didn't. Okay, she didn't fix that. What she did is she went to the king and he was like near death. It's almost over for him. And she's like, oh crap, what am I going to do? She's tried everything she could think of to, solve the shivers, to give him relief, to, cure this. It's not working. He's almost dead. And she's so afraid that if he dies, so many other things are going to go wrong. So she blows the whistle. Felicity and Calamity come to her and they tell her, okay, what you can do is, or Calamity tells her, what you can do is trade one of your candles for him. You've got three lives, give one up for the king. And she's like, I don't know which one is the king's. I can't go in there and trade one without knowing which one is his. And Calamity's like, I can solve that. So he gives her this god sight. Remember, I mentioned a little ago, the gods, they can see all the permutations of your life. They can see which of the candles belongs to who. So Calamity touches her on the forehead, gives her this god sight, and sends her to the between. So Calamity touches her on the forehead, gives her the god sight, sends her to the between. She goes into the cave. She finds the king's candle, which is almost out. She finds her own candles where she's got, her three, one is already lit up and going. You see those? One of them is already lit up and going. She takes one that is not, and she's going to swap it for the king's. She goes to the king's candle and she lights it and she swaps them out. Okay. So she saves the king, but not by solving the shivers. All right. She saves him by swapping out one of her candles. And that's when, we read just a minute ago, Death showing up and being like, what have you done? And he's angry and he's upset. You swapped out one of your candles, one of your lives for this deadbeat king, right? This awful, descending into madness king. What were you thinking? What have you done? Yeah. What have you done? Well, she did it because Calamity made it possible for her to do it. Calamity sort of pushed her into it. The divided one, the devil character, manipulated her into having this decision. He manipulated her into making the decision to go to the between, to switch out the. She got manipulated into doing it, but she did want to prevent all those other deaths. And she thinks she's preventing all those other deaths by saving the king. The thing is, she's not finding the cure for the shivers. So when Euphemia comes down with the shivers, she has to come up with a way to save Euphemia. The problem is she no longer has her power. When she swapped that life and went against Godfather Death, she didn't just go against her godfather. She didn't just give up one of her lives, breaking her godfather's heart. She went against the Holy First. We learn what the Godfather did for her. When he made that deal, when he made that exchange so that she could have 3 candles, so she could have 3 long lives. She's supposed to have one, right? She's a kid. She's immortal. She's supposed to have one life. He gave up. He paid a price for that. The price he paid was he made a deal with the Holy First. The Holy First is the one who forced that God's head vision onto Hazel. So when Hazel goes and she's healing people and she sees that Death's head, when she sees that Death's head, she's seeing it not because Godfather Death wants her to see it. She's seeing it because the Holy First wants her to see it. And the Holy First wants her to send people away in a calm, end of life type thing, wants her to basically euthanize people. The Holy First wanted that. That's the deal that Godfather Death made so that Hazel could have 3 candles. Well, now she's just given away one. She just gave up one of her lives for this king who's not worth it. We learn. She just gave up one of her lives. So now Godfather Death is like, well, crap. Okay, you don't know what you just did, but here we are. She also gave up her power when she did this. The Holy First is like, screw you. Look what you've done. The king was supposed to die. He was supposed to die. You saw the Death's head. He was supposed to die. I'm whipping away your power. And so she's lost the power to see how to heal people. When she comes up to someone and she's looking at them, she no longer knows exactly what to do to heal them. That is gone. She no longer knows what to do to take care of the shivers. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what to do. So she's lost her power. She's like, well, crap. What am I going to do now? So she has to figure out how to get rid of the shivers without that power. She has to use her brain, which she's very good at doing. She has to use her skill and her medical background that she learned in that year that she was studying in the cabin at the Between. Okay, it's so important that she had that year at the Between. And she does figure this out. Okay, spoiler, you guys, she figures it out. I think I'm going to keep it a secret how she figures it out because it's so cool. It's so clever and it's so cool how she figures it out and yeah, it's cool. I'm going to leave it at that because it's just lovely. And I hope that you guys will read it and see it for yourself. All right, what else? Okay, so we were talking about the manipulation. We were talking about how this character of Calamite manipulated her. And I want to go to, hold please. I want to go to the Holy Bible to talk a little bit about this. And let's go specifically to Genesis chapter 3. Chapter 3 is about the fall. And we're going to look specifically at verses 1 through, 13? Yeah, 1 through 13. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, Has God said, you shall not eat of any tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit from the trees of the garden, but from the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you will not eat of it, nor will you touch it, or else you will die. Then the serpent said to the woman, you surely will not die, for God knows that on the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasing to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together, and made coverings for themselves. Then they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. The Lord God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" He said, "I heard your voice in the garden and was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself." And he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit of the tree, and I ate." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What have you done?" Okay, so the serpent deceived Eve. The serpent told them, "Oh, you surely will not die if you eat from the tree." He gave them like a little piece of information. He gave them just a little bit of information that, "Oh, you surely will not die. At least you're not going to die today." Right? Okay. Manipulating them, just manipulative crap. Okay. So when we get into the fractured fairy tale and we have Calamity basically being an allegory for the devil, being that devil character, he is manipulating, he is giving like half-truths and lies and sowing chaos. He is the chaos figure, and he's giving just little bits and pieces to Hazel to get her to do what he would like to see her do. He's just sowing discord all the time, all the time. Yeah. And he's also sowing that discord with Margot. He is the one who gives Margot her marching orders. He's the one who tells her, Margot asks him, "Can you help me basically destroy Hazel?" And so he gives her the marching order. "Okay, try this, try this, try this, try this, do these things, and you'll be in the court, you'll be able to do these things, you can destroy Hazel these ways." Yeah, he's sowing discord. All right, so in this story, we have themes of self-sufficiency, self-sacrifice, living your own life for yourself and not others, because at some point, Hazel does come to understand, look, I've got 2 lives left. And then we do have an incident where there's just one life for Hazel to live. And she decides it is better to just live that life with a character. I mean, we're at the point where I'm giving all the spoilers, right? I mean, she does decide she's going to live that life with one character. And we no longer really see Merrick in her life. We no longer see her godfather showing up and being there, on each of her birthdays. We don't see that anymore until the end of her life. And then we have the epilogue, which is just a nice, sort of lovely ending to wrap things up. I was so thankful for the epilogue to wrap things up, because the climax of the story does kind of leave us with, oh my God, who died? Whose candle just went out? It does kind of leave us wondering which candle got snuffed, what really happened. So the epilogue wraps everything nicely, puts a nice little bow on it, and gives us a sort of satisfying ending. So we kind of see the whole arc of Hazel's life, from when she's the little baby that her mom and dad are talking about, to when she's 8 years old, and then when death comes to take her at age 12, then all the way through her this young adult, and then at her end we do get to see the whole thing. I wanted to mention that we do see that there is that the divided one has that serpent energy from Genesis and has that chaos energy of the devil. And Hazel gets to be our salvation character. She gets to be the one who gives up her 2 of her lives for others. She gets to be the one who gives up lives and gives up everything that she knew, gives up her power, gives up things to help others and be that. I would not go so far as to call her a Christ character. I would not go that far. She is too flawed. She makes too many mistakes. But I like her as a character, as a sacrificial character, because of her flaws and because of her mistakes and because she's able to fall down and get back up. I like that about her. I love the fact that she's a strong female character who is not a sarcastic character. I love the fact that she's able to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, move on from those mistakes, build upon them with knowledge. I'm so pleased that she's able to do that. She's a character who goes through growth and learns from that growth and does stuff with that growth. I'm so pleased with her. So you guys, I can say that I thoroughly enjoyed The 13th Child by Erin A. Craig. I can totally recommend it as a book that you will probably enjoy too. You guys, thumbs up for letting your candle glow, letting your light so shine that others can see it too. You guys, thank you so much for tuning into this very long video. If you've made it this far, if you have read the book also, please leave your comments below. Let me know what you thought of it, what parts you thought were awesome and great. Did you agree with the idea that Calamity is basically the devil? I mean, just the serpent, just so much serpent energy. What parts of this spoke to you? Did you like Birdie? Did you lament over what happened with Birdie, with the character of Birdie? That was a little bit shocking and heartbreaking, right? But so well written. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. We'll see you in the next one.